caffeine or something to stay awake? Okay, so just to kind of back up and review that it's a spiritual journey. There's a process that we move through, and that begins with, we talked about the different stages, that you move through toward the growing, which continues and sort of loops. And we got going and getting the cups, bringing the cups to the table, or having a plan, stacking them. So the words we would use were evangelism, membership, discipleship, and ministry. You can contextualize those and use words that fit your context more, but those would be pretty good spiritual terms. So we covered evangelism, we covered membership. Now we're on discipleship, and we're going to talk about discipleship a little bit. When we say the word discipleship, what are some of the things that come to mind for you? What do you think of immediately when you say that?
Learning.
Learning? Okay. Learning? Yeah.
Deep learning.
Say again?
Deep learning.
Deep learning? Okay.
Replacing yourself.
Replacing yourself. Oh, wow. That's deep learning there. Yeah. Relationships? Anything else? Discipline? Yes, in the word there. Yeah, so you have the spiritual disciplines of being a disciple, discipleship.
Following Jesus.
Yeah, following Jesus, his disciples. Yeah. Helping others to follow Jesus too.
Mentorship.
Mentorship, which goes to relationships that you have there. That's pretty good. That's pretty broad understanding of discipleship, which encompasses all of that. I think a lot of times we start with, as we did here, information. It's about learning. A disciple by nature is a student. But that's not all it is. And I think too often in our churches, that's where we stop. It's an informational transaction. I think it was, who's the guy that got in so much trouble with the guy that said there's no hell? Yeah, he had the videos that are so good.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he had one. It doesn't matter. But he's talking about disciples. A disciple is a follower, a student of a teacher, of a rabbi who wants to. This is really deep. Who wants to learn everything that this person knows, so that they can do everything that person does, so that they can become just like that person. And that was it was dust. That was dust. They walked. They are covered in the dust of their rabbi. They walk so closely that the dust covers them. So discipleship is about learning, but it's really about doing, but it's ultimately about becoming. It's all of those. Typically in churches, our discipleship focuses too exclusively on the information component, teaching. We're very teaching based. Our sermons are teaching. Our commentary are teaching, and teaching is important, but that's just part of it. We need to look at all the different age levels and all the different stages and make sure that we're really equipping them to be followers of Jesus. So there's some dice on your table, and you'll take turns. There should be 2 of them. Yeah. So what you'll do is you'll take those dice, and so we'll go around and you'll roll the dice. And what I want you to do in thinking about discipleship, okay, you'll roll the dice and you'll get 2 digits, and you'll put those together and it'll give you an age. Like your age there would be 66. Okay. So what I want you to do is you roll a dice and then you'll come up with 2 digits, which will give you an age. And I want you to answer this question. You can put it on the table, answer. How does our church do discipleship for a person at that age? Okay. And you actually get 2 numbers, so it could be 35 or it could be 53. You can pick it either way you want to, or you can do both. But what we're going to do is just look at how are we doing discipleship for people at that age or that stage. All right, so roll them and move it around until each one has a chance to go.
I think I cut.
25 or 52.
Not really. There's 2 different twice. One's still there.
Hi, 12-year-old. I'm sure you are almost done. But yes, you're right. For most
Depending on how many kids.
No, it'd be 61 or 60. You were adding them together, yeah. Well, you got it. So you just answer it out loud at the table. Share it with the group. So you'll roll yours and you'll talk about it with
So which one do you think would be easier for me and
very small groups. That mentor was shepherd them, yes, throughout their time in the program. So it's the same person so that they learn to trust that person. And they're really accountable. So I feel like call that person. Right, right. Yeah. It's so much. Like, are you? And you know, I'm sending one leader but we don't feel like we don't need to pay always in pretty much 9 or 10. We have some show them that we needed the kids we
Split it down the middle.
I guess I was married and I felt like my kids, some kids, a lot of kids that age are still almost like college age. You know, they've got a job, but they're still got the college mentality and having a good time. So, yeah, it's, I don't have kids, but we have kids, that changes a lot.
I would say that
Oh, I got 16. I would say 15. Okay, I'll start. Other than. I don't know that I don't have any plans. I just started. Prayer, like do that prayer, you know, did a Thursday prayer. So in
Where I was like, where did we fall?
they had to say the prayer. Well, they like prayer class. Y'all are gonna like say the prayer. We're gonna go around every week. And somebody's gonna close with the prayer besides you. And they struggle to do that. Yes, we're gonna do that first time I was like, it's real simple. It's a video and you read the question. And so, you know, the develop and practice and being the leader. But I don't know that as a whole church. You're talking about college, right? Yeah, we didn't force anybody to do anything.
Has everybody got to share? No? Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's good.
We're having some.
Yeah.
Worked a lot with kids. That one, he's a teacher, just started teaching. He's really good at kids. And he grew up in the church. And we only have two that 52. We have some in kids, and they're active with kids too. Haven't been able to get them involved in their prayer group that we do, and involved in Sunday school. But they'll be out with the kids in Sunday school. So I feel like they're not getting this. We have a Bible study group that goes from 30 to 50-ish, and 50 and older.
With kids and working in their teach.
He was talking about trying to get people to pray. And there's one of the churches I was in there, we had a Bible study, and our pastor made us hold hands, and we would have to go around and say a prayer. And have one guy, he would just say, it's terrifying. You know, made Lord watch over us. After about 2 years, and it was like, oh, dude, he did a blessing.
16 sermons. It's hard to keep 16. Oh, I had to see I'm still very active.
That's true. And but on the other hand, too, it does supply to be able to reach
Cheerleader.
folks that we got to use. Y'all done? Almost. Okay. Keep going.
Over here. Here. We don't want you to leave. Let me get those. My dad wouldn't have any remorse over that one.
Let me ask you a question. I heard you mention mission.
All right, here we go. Go move on. This is a little off script, but I'm just going to give you just some personal sort of freebie thoughts. It's going to first sound very unrelated, but I'll tie it in. So, and I may have talked to you about this before, but in our culture in the South, we use the word saved in theologically an incorrect way. What we mean when we say save or salvation is really justification. It's the confession, repentance, and acceptance. Salvation is a much bigger process than that. That is a part of it, an essential part. And I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying to be saved means to be conformed to the image of Christ. And that is prevenient grace, justifying grace, and sanctifying grace. All of that is included. I'm not trying to put a crusade on you to quit using saved in the wrong context, but I don't want you to be informed and understand that. In our culture, saved is really theologically the principle of justification. Okay? I have somewhat of the same issue with the word discipleship. Okay? So for me, discipleship is really from cradle to grave. It's a whole process. All of that is a part of discipleship. I realize for the context of we're breaking those categories. I would probably use the word equip or train or empower or something like that. That is that part. Discipleship to me is really the whole context of it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But that's I'm just being nitpicky on it. Also, so when you are teaching, which is kind of a primary method for me in discipleship, in the equipping, what determines what and how I teach is two things: how the student learns and what they need. The method is going to be determined by how the student learns, not by what I want to do. How they learn determines how we teach, and what they need determines what I teach. Not what I want to say. So the person at the conforming is different than the probing, different than the growing. Okay? So our discipleship process needs to consider age, because a 16-year-old is different than a 61-year-old, but it also needs to consider stage, because you can have 16-year-olds that are growing, you can have 61-year-olds that are conforming. So you need to factor all that in, and when you look at your discipleship process or your equipping, your training process of your church, you got to make sure you're doing it in a way that your people learn. You got to make sure you're conveying what it is they need in an age and stage appropriate way. Are you following me? Okay. And so what you can do is you look at your stuff, you're going to realize, well, let me ask you this, okay? Did anybody roll a number and go, well, we don't have, I guess you didn't do it because you could do two, but anybody have one where you go, we don't have anybody at that age in our church, so we aren't really doing any discipleship at that age? Yeah. Okay. 15. Okay, so 15. We don't have any teenagers at our church, so we're not doing discipleship. What I would say to that is going and getting the cups is part of the discipleship process. So don't get sucked into thinking that your world is your congregation. Your world is your community. Now, for you to do a Bible study for 15-year-olds, pointless. Okay? But skate park might be a great idea for 15-year-olds to go and find the cups. That's all part of the discipleship process. So you may have to be fishing, not cleaning the fish. You with me? But you need to look and make sure that you're doing all stuff all along that lines. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the teaching. component. Okay, we spent a whole thing on teaching, so we're not going to talk about too much. But in teaching, one of the important things to do is make sure that you're teaching in a way that your students learn and what your students need to do. Okay, and sometimes they don't know what it is they need. And one of the things that helps us sort of make sure we're giving them the full breadth of the scriptures is the Christian calendar. So you have the Christian year is laid out through seasons that sort of help us focus. So you have Advent, which we've just come out of, and then Christmas, which we're in until tomorrow, and then Epiphany starts tomorrow, and then we go into Lent, and then Easter, and then Pentecost. And I'm not saying you have to be religious about adherence to that, but it does give you a guide through the whole story of the gospel. And if you don't have some way, and this is part of what we talked about with planning sermons in a series for a year, if you don't have some process that forces you to deal with the whole, you're going to get your pet peeve issue and you're just going to stay on it all the time. You might be an Easter person and it's just Easter, 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 Easter. Well, that's true, but there is also Christmas and there's also Lent. So we need to be working through all of that. So, any questions on that? I'm not really an expert on it, but
I got a question. What is
Epiphany, I'll read you exactly what it says. Epiphany Sunday is the Sunday, which is Sundays, this Sunday. Epiphany Sunday is the Sunday nearest or on January 6th. This symbolizes the visit of the wise men during the season of Epiphany leading up to Lent. We focus on the ministry of Jesus. So during this season, starting with Epiphany, you're looking at the life and ministry of Jesus. So we've been looking at the birth, and then Epiphany is an epiphany is a discovering, a holding of God. So you have an epiphany, it's a breakthrough, it's a discovery. You see God. This is where the wise men came and saw God. They come after Christmas. We have them all there at the same time, but the shepherds had actually gone by the time the wise men got there. Okay, Bible study. I'm not going to say a whole lot about Bible study. I think there's a book by Rick Warren called Bible Study Methods, 12 Ways You Can Unlock God's Word. Lots and lots of resources out there about different types of Bible study. I heard this table talking about it. People are much more hungry to study the Word of God than we realize. And I don't think there's really a wrong way to do it other than not doing it. So if you just engage in doing it, it's gonna teach you and it's gonna shape you. So don't be afraid of getting your people together to read God's Word, study God's Word. And really just study the Bible is simply this. It's to have a conversation with the text, to ask it questions and let it speak to you. And whatever can slow you down in that process, to have a real dialogue with it, is helpful. And as much as you can get your people in to do that, that's good. Remember, particularly if they're at the probing, which a lot of our people are, they haven't really moved into owning their faith yet. They're still in that probing deal. Don't answer all their questions. Let them figure it out. Give them the resources and the tools to figure it out, but let them come to it on their own. If you don't, you're pushing them the wrong way. You're helping them become more immature, not mature. You don't want a bunch of people that are dependent on you. I have a plaque in my office. I should have brought it. And a bunch of people. Matter of fact, I don't know if I'm not sure if Lee signs when I have a plaque that says, "We pray that our ministry will far exceed yours, so that your time with us would not have been spent in vain." And I'm like, and they don't sign that. Travis Paulding signed that. There's a whole bunch of them, and I'm going, I do want them to go further than me. I do want them to go up on and beyond. So, Christian education is my next topic here. Spiritual maturity is all about behavior change. It's not about information. So even our Bible studies and things we do, it's not about conveying information. It's about facilitating transformation. Oh, please write that down. That was really good. It's not about conveying information. It's about facilitating transformation. So I was recruiting at the University of Georgia with Drew, and where I was up at the University of Georgia. This was years ago, interviewing and recruiting college students to come work for me. This was in the heyday of the Wesley Foundation at Georgia, which is still continuing. It's just amazing what God has done there. At the time, there was a guy named Tom Tanner who was the director there, and he was a mentor to me. Like I've talked to you about Hooley Goddard. It's Hooley and Tom are the two streams that sort of poured into me. And it was a Friday, and Tom was not at work, and I was at the Wesley Foundation interviewing students, and Tom walked in, and I saw Tom. I'm like, that's Tom Tanner, you know. And he sees me, and he motions to me and says, "Hey, which made me feel really good." And a little bit, he came out, and I wasn't interviewing anybody. He came and sat down with me. And he says, "Hey, Jay, I started a ministry here called the Watering Hole. It's still going on. It's a ministry to college students that we do in the summer, and it had grown pretty large. And college students from other areas would come down for the time on Friday nights in the summer." He says, "There's a lot of talk up here in Athens about you and what a great Bible teacher you are." I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "College students all around are talking about the Watering Hole and what you're doing there, that you are a really gifted teacher." I said, "Oh, okay, wow." He said, "There's a difference between being a teacher and being an equipper. Become an equipper." And he walked off. He says he didn't do that, but I remember it very well. It's like, that's not the point. You being a good teacher is not the finished product. You equipping people to become like Jesus is the point. And so when we look at Christian education, we can fall into this information-based deal. Most of our Sunday school classes, most of our small groups are content-based. There's a role for that in this area. That's very immature. I'm not saying it's not needed. I'm just saying eventually we got to get them off of that, and we got to get them into a behavior change. So in your thinking of your groups, is it all about content, or is it about really life change, about application? Most of us have spiritual indigestion because we know far more spiritually than we're actually applying, than we're living out. Most of us don't need to learn anything new. We need to start doing what we already know. And that's true with our people as well. So small groups, we have lots and lots of different types of small groups. You probably have a variety of different small groups at your church. And so what I'd like you to do is take at least 3 index cards on your table, and just take a moment to write down 1 per card. So like if all your all your small groups are Sunday school classes, then just write down 3 different Sunday school classes. Or if you have different ones, you have a Wednesday night small group and you have a Sunday school class, write down at least 3 different small groups that you have at your church.
Jay, would that include like choirs and children's ministries, or are you just looking for more educational?
Could be like what?
Choir.
Choir would be great. Choir would be a great small group, yeah. And kudos for realizing that choir is a small group. For us, everything would be a small group. A service team would be a small group. But understanding that sort of changes the dynamic.
Again, what? Put down a small group and what now?
Write down a small group, 1 on each card, just one with at least 3.
And do what?
That's it. Just write down. It's not that complicated. You make it overcomplicated. Yeah, we got a Wednesday night work crew that actually meets on Thursday nights now, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why we don't change things. I get the head maybe. Our coffee service teams. We have a Sunday school class that meets over in the youth building. We have youth groups that have small groups. You have children's ministry. We have home churches. We have recovery ministries, which would have multiple small groups. So we can just pick one of those. Everybody got at least 3 written down, 3 different cards. Okay, here's what I want us to think about. All right. Now, a great exercise to do is to think holistically as you look at, and I guess you'll be kind of doing this in the next session, so I won't go there. You want to know if that, think about it this way, okay? Every program, every ministry that we do is a mechanism, a tool to help people get from this point to that point. It's a step on a journey. And so I got to know where I'm trying to take them from and where I'm trying to take them to in order to know whether that tool is working, whether that step is effective. Because I could be taking a step in the wrong direction. So for instance, if what I do takes them from here to here, that's bad. When they're here, I need a step that takes them from here to here. So I got to know what the purpose, with crystal clarity of what that small group is in order to be able to evaluate whether it's effective or not. I'll give you a great example. When Ann and I were a part of St. Simon's Methodist, which is a great and wonderful church, and I'm not in any way knocking it. My dad was actually the pastor of it at this time. They started a ministry called Men's Life, which is a small group, accountability groups for men. Wonderful, neat stuff, changing people's lives. My dad's still in a men's life group that meets every week. So kind of like Emmaus reunion groups, kind of similar to that. But these men would meet weekly and share and hold each other accountable and spur each other on. So it's going great, changed a lot of lives. So we decided what we were going to do, to have a big fish fry and have people come, invite men to come, have people that were in the groups give testimonies about how meaningful it was to them so that you would get inspired, well, not you, but you would get inspired to sign up to get in a group as well. So it's evangelistic and outreach to get more people involved, okay? So, because it was really making a big impact, church is a big deal. So we're there in the Thorpe building, packed. It's packed. I mean, every seat's full, tables, we're sitting at tables. Great meal. Everybody's laughing, having a great time. The energy's high. It's just wonderful. People getting up, giving testimonies. People are crying. It's just wonderful. And I'm sitting there going, this is stinking awesome. This is awesome. And then we had sign-up sheets for people to sign up for groups or to start groups. And then they did this. Okay, we don't want to put anybody on the spot. Okay, we don't want to put a spot, but we want you to know how impactful this is. So you've heard some testimonies from people that have got up and told how much this means, but actually some of the people that are sitting at tables around you are in these groups. So just to give you an idea of the people that are in the groups that are around you, I'm just going to ask real briefly, not put them on the spot, not make anybody feel bad that's not, but if you're in a group, would you just quickly raise your hand so people can see that and then put them back down so that you'll know that some of your friends have taken the step. You're trying to model it for them, okay? Well, I'm watching the whole thing. Everybody in the room raises their hand. This was not an A event. It was an F event. Because the purpose was to reach new people. There were 0 new people there. Now, every metric that you would use, the room was packed, the energy was high, people were crying. You would walk away going, this is awesome. It was not awesome. It was a big red F. It did not accomplish. That was a good time. And if the purpose had been fellowship and inspiration, that's an A. But that was not the purpose. Okay? So we're having these events that are great. Then we're wondering, why is this ministry not growing? Because our outreach event is an F. Okay? So we've got to know what the purpose is in order to be able to evaluate it. And if we don't evaluate it, we don't know if we should continue it or not. So what I want you to do now is take a moment. What happened to my? Here we go. So looking at your small groups, ask these questions. Why are you gathered? What's the purpose of that meeting? Why are you gathering? What do you hope to accomplish? How will you know if it's been accomplished? How are you growing in your relationships and learning to trust others in this community of faith? So you look at it and go, do you know why it exists? Most of the time it's just because it always has. Because that's where that Sunday school class has always met in that room. And it was there before I got there. But if we still got to know why it exists. So take a moment to run through and answer those questions. And then we'll come back and talk. Try to do it for each one of your three groups.
discussion or?
No, just do it. You just do yours. Yeah.
I'm not in choir, I'm not in any of the groups, I'm just being.
Then you're the perfect person. You're the perfect person to evaluate those.
That's what I said.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Because if that purpose is not clear, then there's a problem. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, or maybe a D.
Gotcha.
What else scheming over here?
Steve ate my Oreos, I'm still.
Oh, did he?
We got him on.
You, okay.
But
But they're not his.
They're not
It's,
his.
I hear you. Okay, you've got those questions in your notebook. So if you didn't have time to finish them all, you can look at those later. Which the next questions in your notebook are good as well. So do you think that the group leaders, the people in charge of the group, would answer the questions the same way that you would? What do you think? Sometimes. What's that? You are the leader? Yeah.
I do agree with you.
Then
Yeah, no, I agree with myself.
Yeah.
So you're doing a great job, so.
So yours would be a little bit, because you are the group leader, but others, do they understand their role in the group? Like, for instance, for us, the coffee shop people, if we see it as a small group for the purpose of building trust, to helping people build trust in the church. In other words, dependability, that we're prepared for you when you come. Well, that can totally change the way they operate if they understand and are clear on what the purpose is. So, for instance, if they're a little late, it's no big deal if they just think their job is just, to help out. But if they realize their credibility is what is building trust with people, that being late is unacceptable. So having that clear purpose there. So what's the difference between busy and productive?
I think busy is just doing something to do something, whereas productive, you have a goal. You have a goal and a purpose.
I would even take it one step further.
I think you could just be busy with a goal.
Yep.
So you have to accomplish.
Yep.
That's what I said with a goal.
But having a goal and accomplishing a goal are two different things. I got to have it, I got to know it, and I got to reach it to be productive. Now, not reaching it, I might be giving it a good effort, and it might be that, I'm
Moving towards the goal.
yeah, I might be moving toward it. I might be making progress. Most of our churches really got a lot of this going on, but maybe not a lot of this. And I think a lot of it is they don't even know because they haven't figured out what the purpose of what they're doing is. So they don't know. They can't even measure if they're making progress.
Right.
We're just busy doing stuff because we think our job is just to do stuff. So the more stuff that we have, the better. So let me ask you this. I got to ask this question. Back in the face-to-face days, this guy came up to me and says, man, I'm really impressed with what's going on here. How can I get involved with what's happening here? Good question or bad question? It's a bad question.
Yeah.
It's a bad question, okay? And it's a great question, and it's a bad question. It's a great question because he asked it. Not many people will ever ask that question. And when I realized that he asked me that question, I realized there's a lot of people walking out the door who don't know the answer to that question, but don't have the guts to ask. It's the difference between a pile of rocks and a yellow brick road. A lot of our churches have a pile of rocks, but there's no clear path. There's no sequence. I think that systematic. You use the word systematic over here. You're systematic. There's no systematic way of moving people through the discipleship process. It's just you probably have enough things going on. They're just not in order, and so there's no yellow brick road. There's no clear next step. They're going to move this way, but there needs to be a roadmap, not just a pile of rocks that are just haphazardly. Maybe you get them right, and maybe you don't. A pile of rocks usually means you're just busy. A yellow brick road brings order and structure and helps you to be productive, or at least to realize if you're not being productive, or if you're making progress. So John Wesley, he had, matter of fact, it was John Wesley and it was George Whitefield. Okay, this is real interesting little side note for you Methodist historians. George Whitefield was a much better preacher than John Wesley was. John Wesley was much better organizer than Whitefield was. It was his structure, it was his system that is what birthed the Methodist Church. It was his discipleship process that he put in place that gave structure to the life. Whitefield would stir people up, but then they would fade away and it wouldn't last. So he had these things called classes, class meetings, and the groups would get together. It's basically small groups. And the point of this, or the rules of this thing, were do no harm, to do good, and practice the ordinances of God. I'm not sure if I got my slide. Practice the spiritual disciplines in your life, to live it out, to behavior change. And then there was a level of accountability and honesty that these people had where they asked, so how are you doing? Where are you struggling? Are you lying to me? I mean, that was one of the questions. In the past questions, which one of them did you lie on? You know, and it leads to authentic community. And authentic community is where we really find the support we need to faithfully follow God. I don't believe that we can hear God without silence and solitude. Not that the only time we hear God is when we have the silence and solitude. But if there's not a stillness to our soul, we can't hear God. But I don't believe we can consistently obey God without authentic community. And to your social media comment, I believe we live in a world where we don't fully enter into silence and solitude, nor do we fully enter into authentic community. We live in this middle land, this in-between land. We as spiritual leaders need to carve out the discipline of silence and solitude so that we're in tune and hear from God. And we've got to take the vulnerability and risk to enter into authentic community so that we have the support to faithfully and consistently obey God. And we can't lead people to places that we don't go. So if we don't go there as leaders, then we can't take our people there. So Cynthia Kapodic sent me an Instagram message this week. This is really tough for people to do this. she was sending me a quote from a talk I did in 2010. Whenever they quote you back to yourself, that's always a scary thing. Yeah. But this one was actually pretty good. So she said, I said, you cannot enter the room of authentic community without going through the door of confrontation and conflict. And we've got to create environments where our people can get close enough that they can enter into that confrontation and conflict and work through that, get real with each other. That's accountability. And that's a necessary part of our discipleship process. So you got to look at your church and go, where's the deep water? Where are those places where people are getting real with each other and it's changing their behavior? It's not conveying information. It's facilitating transformation. That's going to happen when people start living out and acting on what they learn. I think we're too content. I'm a teacher. That's my nature. I'm all about content. But don't kid ourselves to think that's all that people need. It's far more than that. Okay, Ann, you going to take it from there with ministry? And I'm going to slip out. I've got to go get ready for a funeral. So I'm going to leave it with Ann for y'all for the rest of the day. So God bless.
Thank you.
All right. So if you guys will do something for me, we are going to take a break from our notebooks. So if you guys will close up all your notebooks and kind of clear a space in the center of your table, we are going to play a game called Mission Possible. The last part of what we're talking about in terms of discipleship is mission and ministry. What does it look like for us to be in mission and ministry? Okay? So kind of clear a space. And then what I'm going to do is pass out the keyboard and give you guys some cards and some directions. Okay? So you guys are going to be working together as a team to play this week.
My Christmas food.
I gotta stand up for a minute. I'm like practicing. Going on hours. You're in charge of the game.
All right. So one of the things that we could talk about in terms of mission and ministry is we could talk about all of the ways to get involved in mission and ministry in our local congregations, in our community, in the world. But a lot of times as church leaders, it's up to us to provide opportunities for other people to get involved in mission and ministry, right? So a lot of times we're the participants, but then when you move over to the leadership side of things, a lot of times it's our responsibility as leaders to be in that role of developing systems for other people to get involved in mission and ministry. And one of the things that is interesting about mission and ministry is that we often repeat things that have been meaningful for us in the past. We do the same kinds of things in the same kind of way and then expect that people are going to get really, really excited about this new initiative. And sometimes people do, but a lot of times people don't because it's a recycled version of what we've done in the past. And I think that a lot of times it comes down to the way that we approach planning a mission or a ministry opportunity. Okay? So what we're going to do is we are going to, quote, play a game, but it's not going to be, like a, haha, it's your turn game. It's going to be a collaborative team game that we are going to do in order to create a hypothetical mission or ministry opportunity for a group of people, okay? So we're going to move through this process, and here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to take note of the process, because the process that we use is replicable in an enormous amount of settings that you guys can use moving forward, okay? The end result, you're probably never going to see this ministry come to see the light of day. That's okay. We're not doing it for the purpose of creating the ministry. We're doing it for the purpose of learning how to create a ministry and mission opportunity and how to look at that through new eyes so we can do new things to reach new people that we have never reached before. Okay? If we keep doing the same things in the same way, we're going to keep reaching the same people. So we've got to make a shift and do something in a new way in order to reach new people. That's going to get in those cups, okay, that Jay talked about, in order to bring them into the family of God. So what we're going to do is move through this process. The way that we're going to do it is I'm going to call out different steps in the process and give you guys a little bit of direction, and then I'm going to turn you loose, and then we're going to come back together and talk about it, and then I'll turn you loose on the next problem. So don't think, oh, the first time you get the chance, you're just going to fill out the whole form all at the same time, okay? I'm going to give you guys some direction as we go. So the first thing that we're going to do is figure out what problem we are trying to solve in the community, okay? This is huge. A lot of times we create opportunities for the sole purpose of creating opportunities. We need a mission opportunity for our people to get involved with. So I'm going to create a mission opportunity for our people to get involved with, and we're not really looking at what does the community need. Remember, Jay just said we want to make sure that as teachers and as leaders, we're teaching in the way that others need to learn, and we're doing the things and addressing the things that others actually need. So what would it look like to look in our community and say, what does the community need? What is the problem that God is calling us to come alongside and help work toward a resolution? So instead of just creating a thing, let's look at the problem. So what we've done is I've given you guys 5 problem cards, okay? And you guys have that stack of cards that are held together by that paper clip. So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes, maybe like 5 minutes in your group, to read through those cards and then come to a consensus about those cards and say, you know what, let's address this problem as we move forward in our time together. Okay, so if it's homelessness, you're going to say, okay, let's address homelessness. And then what I want you to narrow down into a particular area of that card. So if it's homelessness, what avenue of homelessness? Are we looking at homeless kids and families that are on the street? Are we looking at homeless vets that have returned? What aspect of homelessness are we going to address? Because sometimes we can say, oh, we're going to address all the things about homelessness. Not very well. So we need to narrow in whatever that problem is. And then you guys are going to write down your problem right here in this first little blank, okay? So identify the category, narrow it in, and hone in on a specific element of that, and write it down, okay? Go.
I don't think we have that much time.
Mine's domestic violence. Oh,
Now it's a narrative. So now somebody just read it out.
domestic violence.
Those things that relate
Those are our top 3, I think.
Yeah.
to community.
Which also is really, I have one. What is the problem?
Education. They help with tutoring. Because a lot of the struggles.
What part do you want to do? There's no cost.
Yeah, all of that's
And then out of schools, it's 20% those.
Yeah, one area, it can be something that's on that card or something else that you guys make up. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you synthesize it to whatever you want it to be. But just get pretty specific.
And available. If not enough.
So,
that sounds like HEPA right there. Are you sure? We do this thing in our church on Mondays for Sanctuary, and we have like a band, we just got these kids that show parts and all that. And we have two people from the church that are teaching elementary school and middle school, so they get the word out, you know, ahead of time. Friday before they go to the sanctuary. And then the kids say, yeah, and a lot of them list. So we'll make sure we get that try to get but we bring the church. We always feed them, and it may be hot dogs or peanut butter sandwich. And some fruit, chips, and stuff like that. And then we do a lesson. A lot of times we do a craft kind of thing. And then that helps us to understand like one of those girls, she should have been right her name. She was in sixth grade. She couldn't write her name. So then that was our invitation. Said, hey, we need to work this. So she's moved 4 times last year. And she's fallen through the cracks. Then we do an activity. And then we always try to do something like we have a kids came out to the program.
Something like a halfway.
And got them.
Until they can get find somebody.
I think if you do one, you might do that. I think if you do that.
So the dollar signs on the policy. Or homeless. I can use it.
I think if we address and a way to do that. One is, Thomas was saying, just to be specific and what you want to do. One day a week.
All right, so by now you need to go ahead and be writing in the blanks. What is your problem and what is the specific aspect of that problem that you guys are going to address? So go ahead, I'll give you another minute or two to write those thoughts in the blanks. You're writing down your specific problem in those blanks. Go ahead and get that down and then we're gonna move on to the next. Yes. Yep. Okay, perfect.
Last.
Our thing is we lose contact on it, so move out of county. It's hard to.
How does church actually? How does
I know, yeah.
increase
Yeah. Well,
the level of level would be great.
Yeah, well, yeah. Because at a certain level, grade level, we should be doing
Yeah,
certain things.
this is a notable growth. You look at education of the child, you measure that. Look at we got Stevie and Mikey in this class.
All right, you guys ready? Okay, so designate a speaker for your group, okay? And that person is going to tell the rest of the group what your problem is and narrowly focus kind of what your specific target area is within that problem, okay? What specific area you plan to address, all right? And then what we're gonna do is some of you guys might have questions and you might say, well, are you talking about this or this? And so we're gonna help each other kind of refine the problem to make sure that we've really honed in on the exact thing and we're clear about the exact thing that we're talking about, okay? So which group wants to go first? Yippee, everybody.
We'll go.
Okay, you guys go first.
We chose child poverty. And one of the things that it said on the card was about how children in poverty tend to have less opportunities for educational, like maybe we were thinking that when they get home, the parents may not have time or be there to spend time with them to help them with their education, that kind of thing. And it also mentioned about they don't always have the health resources either, even know how to take care of themselves. At least that's kind of where I was. But so our first thought was to take that and to offer maybe an after-school program where they can come in, receive tutoring, receive help with where they are at that level. Thomas was talking about how they do something at their church, but how there might be a sixth grader that doesn't even know how to write their name yet. So, trying to hone in on the things that they need education-wise. And then hopefully that will lead into other opportunities for us to offer help things for them, either to teach them or to offer for them, during that mission.
So you guys are really addressing the root cause of poverty, really have a long-term goal to affect that generationally. Yeah,
kind of teach them how they can take.
Yeah. So any questions, anything that seems unclear to the rest of you guys? Does that seem pretty clear and specific? All right, good deal. Okay, who wants to go next? Gary, you.
Yeah, ours was the big card was homelessness. And we put, the problem we're trying to solve is the identification of adolescents in homeless situations.
Okay.
We talked about training, partnering up with school system, local school system, and trying to identify youth that are in those situations and services. I was just talking about how Brunswick started getting increasing population.
Yeah.
It's a bigger issue.
All right. So you guys are zeroing in homelessness, but then targeting a specific demographic of homelessness, identifying them, and then connecting them with resources. Is that kind of what I understand? Okay. Any other questions that you guys have about that? All right. Who wants to go next?
Well, we thought we were only supposed to do a little web block. We didn't know we were supposed to come up with solutions yet. So we just have our problem. The big thing is mental health, and that our target is awareness.
Okay. Awareness, just in the general public of mental health awareness?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? You guys want to go in?
I would. We picked, drink. One of the things it says on our cards that more than 23,000 women die from heavy drinking in the United States each year. So we thought we would get a Christian-based recovery house for women. For women. And to, from there, try to develop the people to talk to them, counselors, get them into some type of recovery, help them get jobs, and
So you're really trying to address alcoholism, but particularly
in women.
within women, and giving them a comprehensive treatment facility for that. Okay? What about you guys?
Well, we picked homelessness.
Okay.
I've just been hired this week to become the manager of the Well,
Congratulations.
which is the hospitality center for the homeless. And it's an opportunity for them to gather. They can take a shower, they can wash their clothes. If there's someone there to counsel them, if they need services such as some of them have no ID, some of them need to apply for their benefits. There's a social worker there to work with them. And the Well has partnered with some of the churches in the area, so some of the churches provide breakfast for them. So they can come in and shower and go to that church and have breakfast.
So it really is meeting immediate needs of homeless. All right. So here's what we're going to do next. Okay. A lot of times what happens when we are working together with teams and we're establishing ministries, what we start with is what we have. And then we say, what can we do with what we have? Well, this time we're starting with what does the community need? And now we look at what do we have, okay? So what I'm going to do is let you guys choose some resource cards, okay? Each group will get 3 resource cards. Now there are 4 different types of resources, okay? There are people resources, there are capital financial resources, there are facilities resources, and there are equipment resources. But you guys get 3 of those, 1 of each from 3 of the 4 categories. Because here's the thing, when do you ever have all of the resources that you need to do a ministry? Never. Very rarely do you have all 4, right? So we've got to learn. And sometimes we say, oh, I don't have everything I need, so I'm off the hook. I don't need to do this ministry. Well, here's the thing. Do you guys know that creativity is often born from innovation whenever you have limitations? That all of a sudden, when you have limitations and you see those as boundaries and guidelines to work within instead of as roadblocks, then all of a sudden you're able to be creative. And so that's what we're going to force you guys to do. Okay, so you have your problem, you've already thought about some plans. Here's what I want you guys to do. Send one person from your group back here to the back, and you are going to choose one stack of resource cards without looking at them, okay? Because you're just given what you're given, okay? And then whenever you have your resource cards, you guys talk about those at your table, okay?
I would not pick it up.
All right. Now, here's what you guys are gonna do. You're gonna put your resource cards in the 3 places on your board that call for your resource cards, okay? So you're gonna lay those out, and then looking at your resources that you have been given, you're going to develop ideas for solving that problem, okay? Now, here's the thing. Some of you guys have already thought about what you'd like to do, but as you look at these resources, you're like, wait, that is not gonna work. Well, that's a good thing, because what often happens is our minds begin to formulate things that we've seen before, things we've heard before, things we've done before, and then we do the same things over again. These resources are forcing you to look at your problem through a different lens and create something new, okay? So you're gonna have to use your resources in order to solve that problem. And then on your form, you see where it says, what's your idea? That's where you're gonna begin to write down ideas of what you could do to solve that problem using these resources, okay? So you guys go ahead and work on that, and then we're gonna share that in just a little bit.
I have an idea. I have
That's right.
Or at least a,
So how are you gonna get money? Using
Okay, I have a little bit. Yeah, I was thinking even before that, like, one of the things you're not just concentrating on their education. Oh, we had 3 teaching kids life skills. Well, because if you have to learn reading, you have to learn measuring, and there's things that we can.
So now you guys, and you guys begin to talk about what that would look like. So make some plans. Exactly, so now let me feed into that and see what you would do for the last job.
You'll not be visiting us for you.
You gotta keep.
I said,
Areas as it's going to feel.
there you go.
Go back and stick it.
Yeah, well, you're right.
Against your stated solution. Conflict of interest. If that was your goal. I wouldn't say that that's your only facility. I would say that if you have the church and like that, you can say, hey, we have contact 5 churches and get them to donate space or whatever, or something like that. And that can be a part of your thing. But you need to figure out how you could use your vision with all of this.
Also be good for like summer for the kids, because in middle school, a lot of them not getting good meals, it's junk. In school year, almost underprivileged can get breakfast and lunch. And Sunday schools are going like that. Sometimes food for the weekend. Sometimes I know it's kind of hard.
So, what about if
I don't know if that's the only way I got to go to church when I was a little girl.
ladies in the facility, I mean, that would change that to do that.
I call it the guy you What is it? I would try to do pick you up. I said, well, it's okay. You don't have to get out. Come pick you up. You told me never come pick you up.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, he could do like an assessment for a grade level.
I'll get ready to go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was I missed.
You guys have so many ideas. It's hard to capture.
Very specific.
It is, isn't it? No, it is through the Discipleship Ministries has put out this game called Methodist Church. And that was my exact. Exactly. So, and I've used it in so many different ways. Yeah. Now it's expensive. But yeah, I've been able to, Jake just talked with congregational development and we've used it. Because it's fine.
Not because we don't have that here
It is.
You must have went through the car wash.
Yeah.
I love the different.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
When you
Could be
Prayed over, but whatever tribe, yeah, had a great story here.
All right, so what we're gonna do is move on to the next category. The next category on your sheet says, who are you going to work with, okay? Here's the thing. A lot of times in the church, we begin new ministries and we think, wow, we are the only ones doing this thing, when 5 other organizations in the community are doing the same thing. And what would it look like if instead of reinventing the wheel, we actually approached other organizations and said, hey, what is the well doing to address homelessness, and how can we partner with you guys to either do the same thing or extend what you guys are doing in a new way? We always need to be thinking about what is happening in the community, because the community loves to come together and part other organizations. That allows your church and your congregation to be seen as these are people who are for the community, because they're looking and they're reaching out to other organizations. They're not just isolating themselves and saying, we're the saviors, we're going to address the problem on our own. But we're saying, hey, let's combine with this. Let's combine with this. We need to be the synergists in our communities that are bringing people together. So in terms of your particular idea and the things that you guys have been talking about, what would be 3 organizations that already exist in your community that you know of that you could partner with? Okay, and I know that you guys are from different communities. You can list different communities, organizations, but just talk about the types of organizations that you could work with and write those down. I'll give you like 1 or 2 minutes to do that.
Peanut butter and Jesus deal. Very nice. They do like a lot of the summer stuff with backpacks. Start out doing also and they also wrong, so there is somebody in my bed that's community.
So it doesn't have to be
Yeah, school system.
but in that area.
Yeah, we have 2 school teachers, so they're kind of outside.
Yes.
They do a lot of stuff.
Somebody that came across. They got 3 sentences.
St. Andrews,
It might be called another name. They're all-
you said that about cleaning.
Yeah, St. Andrews is one of the falls into, Big Moon and,
All right, the next area that we're gonna be working on in terms of our ministry is what impact will this have? What impact will this have? Okay, here's what I want you guys to think about. 2 questions. How do you know your idea will solve the problem? What will the evidence be? A lot of times when we plan ministries, we're like, this is what we're gonna do, this is how we're gonna do it, let's go do it. And we go do it, and we don't ever take the time to say, hey, did it actually work? Did it accomplish what we set out to do? When Jay was talking about the men's ministry example, had they not reflected on it and said, hey, did what we do work? Then they would just leave thinking, man, that was an A+ event. It was perfect. And they wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn from that and to change it for the next time. So they could actually address what they had set out to do. So from the start of planning this ministry, we want to say, how are we going to measure it? How are we going to evaluate it? What is going to be the evidence that it actually has been accomplished? Okay, so if you're looking at some sort of problem, maybe it's a reduction in the number of people who are doing X, or we want to see X number of students completing high school, or we want to see whatever it is, okay? How are you going to know that what you're doing is working? Set that goal from the very start. So then 6 months down the road, you come back and evaluate and you can say, oh man, we absolutely hit the mark, or we did not hit the mark. Why did we not hit the mark? What can we do to change it moving forward so we can hit that mark? Okay, so you guys talk about that. What impact will this have? And write down the answers to those 2 questions on that, on those lines.
Grades would be better, so they report card would be- We're addressing education. Probably should be investment in education. We get the benefit is losing all this other stuff.
What percentage? If you're an adult, there should be looking at how they're in school the same way they're learning. You know, like that was one big tell like
That's tough.
Yeah.
We're putting a lot of resources towards you feeling what's the result.
Like every church that does it, they have documented their level of. Is it after the program that you take this they like it's younger. And any adult really can go. One child, and you just when they talk, you know, they do their homework with them. Just that one-on-one attention for an hour a day, those kids, their grade levels start increasing. Just from one-on-one attention for 1 hour a week. And then ours, not we have a choice.
Yep.
But, it's just any book fail.
Well, they have some classes.
All right. Oh,
People are God planning.
it's asking for that.
Their attitude.
Then you're gonna know.
Nothing to give you.
All right, did you guys notice that there's a little telephone next to that and it says, who you gonna call? The answer is not Ghostbusters, unfortunately, but,
We're gonna
what,
call Jesus.
always. But what I want you guys to think about is as you are evaluating, who can you call to help you get some data for evaluation? Okay, so for instance, this group over here, we were talking about they're addressing alcoholism, particularly with women. Okay, and they said, well, if 75% of the women that come through this program get their 1 year chip, that's how we're going to know if we're being successful. Well, who are you going to call for that information? Maybe you call AA. Maybe you call some sort of other organization. Maybe you call an expert that is an expert in your field to come in and help you evaluate and assess whether what you're doing is working, okay? We always need to be thinking about what resources are available in the community and how do we utilize those resources. A lot of times we kind of isolate ourselves inside the church and we don't reach out into the community and gather the resources that are out there. So think about in your context, who is one person you could call to help with that evaluation and assessment component. Just write their name or their title or whatever by the telephone. I'm going to give you 30 seconds for that one.
You know what? You just get, well,
Oh, he had already done that.
get over on that.
On the way home.
Just
I live farther than I have to live.
just get on that. Maybe.
We run together, yeah. I come from.
All right, so let's move on. We're approaching the end of our planning time here. All right, down here at the bottom, okay, it says, what else do you need to know about the problem? Here's the thing that we do a lot of times. A lot of times we make assumptions about what people need in the community and about what people know and about what we know, and we move forward on those assumptions, and then we end up creating something that is not as effective because we need to know about the problem. So let's pretend that you guys had a planning session and you're going to develop whatever this ministry is, okay? There are things you don't know yet that you need to know in order to carry this out. So at the end of your planning sessions, just in general, what would it look like if you ended it with, second to last thing, what else do we need to know about this problem? What are some assumptions we might be making that we need to find out about? So I want you guys to be thinking, if this were a real ministry planning session, what else do you need to know about this problem? Are you making any assumptions based on maybe what you think to be true but don't know? Do you need to contact somebody and find out more information about what's available or resources? What would be something that you need to know about the problem? And then the next one, what are your next steps? Always in some sort of planning meeting with, okay, who's doing what and what are the next steps? Because a lot of times we'll make all these plans and we'll say, okay, let's go do it. And then I think Andy's doing it, Andy thinks I'm doing it, and then we get back together in a month and nothing's been done because nobody said who's doing what. So let's go ahead. Your next steps, if this were a real thing, who would be doing what next? Okay, 2 next steps. So write down those 2 things and then we're going to share in just a moment.
Because with the way he says, I would actually consider all in ninth grade, consider their kindergarten. Have been in ninth grade, and there's a problem with kindergarten. He knows foundation. That one time was back. In kindergarten, I started being able to have that third grade level, so we could get this kindergarten. So I think knowing that some of them.
Numbers, you know what the kids are already doing, so you duplicate efforts.
Right.
Number of kids, number and age, are different. Second graders are different.
I think, yeah, the ones that are already. Yeah.
They like to pass. How many people?
Right.
You know what, we have one van, we pick up 30 to 40 kids. And so there's a person that's doing the van, and so we bring them through shifts. And that's the only way we can do it. So, you know, some are going home later than others, but they're still going through the same stations. Once you get them to the facility, how many can you do?
Right, exactly.
You got needs 100, but you only do 50. Where they, where, who needs targeting, and where they need. And that kind of helps you guys. Usually it's the younger kids, and they can't do it on their own. And do it on their stuff, because their mom and dad are working, they get off the bus, there's nobody there, and relax with kids. And so, you know, they just need some help.
Well, and
Doing
that's really two
homework.
different things. The younger one, help the younger one, you keep them from ever getting behind. You
Right,
help the
yeah.
other one, you might help them
Keeps
catch
them
up.
up.
You have to really kind of decide which one you would want to do.
Bob's gonna make the school.
That may even be for the facilities.
School council, 'cause that's what they do.
And then we get time off.
Firemen are gonna make the county fire
And you're always gonna have things that come up. Like one of the girls, you know, I drew, she comes in, she's wearing a dress, you know, in the third grade. And when the lady says, "Oh, that's a beautiful dress, I'm so glad you're wearing a dress," she made comments, she said, "That's what you wear dresses." And girl said, "Thank you, my daddy found me in a dumpster." And we were, so then we were, they're new clothing here too.
All right, you guys elect one person from your group that's gonna be your spokesperson. And we're gonna give each group 2 minutes to share kind of a summary of your project. Okay, you're gonna have 2 minutes. We have you guys on a timer on my phone, so that way we'll be going through really quickly. So decide who's gonna be your spokesperson and then we'll get started.
We good with it. We can-
I got time to go.
You are messing with
Yeah,
her.
me,
Our sister,
Oh, boy.
All right, so here's what I want you guys to say in the summary. What is your problem? So remind us what your problem is. Tell us your resources that you had available, and then tell us a couple of the ideas. You don't have to read the whole thing, okay? Just a couple of the ideas that you guys came up with, and then how are you going to evaluate it? Because I think that evaluation piece is crucial, but so often we don't think that way. We just don't set a timeline or a tripwire for evaluation. We just do the thing, and then we don't look back and learn lessons from it, okay? So 2 minutes, who's ready to go first? Go for it.
All right, our problem was mental health awareness, and our resources were, we had 100 people pitching in $50 each. We had a projector and 10 volunteers doing 2 hours a week, so 20 hours of volunteer work a week. Our idea is that we're going to do mental health awareness series over the course of the year. We're gonna have 4 different sessions with a vendor fair. And what we'll do is we'll communicate our follow-up in all the promotional settings so that people know how we're evaluating it even, when we first get out there. Some of the organizations that we'll be working with are the Crisis Center, United Way, Salvation Army, Union Mission in Savannah. Then also the school systems and VFAPs to coordinate all those different resources and availabilities. The impact, the measure that we're going to be basically looking at is what's our attendance and participation, because if we're trying to raise awareness, obviously if people are there, they're becoming more aware. And also we would get with who you're going to call is we're going to call those vendors and see if they've had any increase in, usage as well. What else do we need to know about the problem? Well, we also, what other stigmas are out there about mental illness? Using getting the faces and the stories that are within our community, and so that people know who they are and that they're not alone. Next steps would be, of course, to book the space, start pushing out information to vendors and things like that.
Good deal. A minute and 49 seconds, way to go. Under time, all right. Good job. Okay, who wants to go next? All right, Gary's group.
Okay, our problem is identification of adolescent homelessness. Our resources are 5 vintage bikes. We have $100 in finances, and our facility is swimming pool or track football stadium. Our idea is to host an awareness event and auction the vintage bikes, okay, and a bike-a-thon with a goal of $10,000. We're going to incorporate school resources and church resources, band members, and things like that. Number 2, we're going to use partial finances to equip teachers and church partners in recognition of youth homelessness issues and placement services. And also another idea we had was to use partial finances for after-school programs in our facility areas. Who are we going to work with? We're going to work with the school system. We're going to work with law enforcement. We're going to work with DFACS. What impact will this have? Well, who we're going to call? We're going to go back to those people because they work with these issues every day. What else do we need to know about the problem? We need to know our partner resources, our statistical information, our annual support through grants and fundraising. Our next steps are to schedule fundraisers, bike-a-thon, and then planning, partnering, and assignment of roles leading to the success of our bike-a-thon. How do we know our idea will solve the problem? Well, we're going to identify and placement services, identification and placement.
And that's something you'll be able to measure.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, good job. 1 minute, 45 seconds. Good job. All right, who wants to go next?
We're gonna go again, shorter time.
Exactly. Do it again this time. Just so you know, my money's on Josh to be able to beat that time.
38 seconds.
Exactly. All right. Kim, you guys want to go? All right.
I talked slow.
You're fine.
We were child poverty and we wanted to focus in on helping them with the lower education opportunities they have. We were going to use our 5 cars to transport and commute kids from schools to the facility. We're getting commercial kitchen, yay, to do meals and to also, which was part of our idea, is to teach the kids how to cook. We would teach them language skills, how to work as a team, and also give them food skills to take home.
Well done, well done.
There you go. And then we also have a geek who knows all about computers, so he can teach life skills or help do programs to teach the kids life skills, other life skills. Also to tutor, like we were talking about, to focus in on what that child needs. He can personally do that for each child, what that child needs, and maybe not necessarily on computer, but print out stuff that we could use for that child. So we would use them that way. We're going to work with like organizations like maybe the Boys and Girls Club to talk with them, school system teachers and counselors that maybe even would come and tutor and give us knowledge from the school, Family Promise or another similar food bank organization that might help provide food for everything that we need. The impact we hope to see, if they're learning and loving what we're doing, there'll be an increased attendance at school and better grades. Reports, we can get that from the school system itself and the teachers and counselors that we're working with. And of course, you'd see a change in the child, himself or herself. But we would need to know that we are not already doing something the community already offers. We make sure we're not repeating something. Our target age group, because you can't do too big of an age group, the capacity of the facility, what are the numbers we're looking at to begin with. And our assignments were to get people to contact the organizations that we want to work with and to contact the people that we need to make sure we have people to do it when we want to do it in the facility.
Good job. And you were under 2 minutes. 1 minute. 1 second to spare. All right. Andy's ready.
Okay, our was women drinkers, and we plan to try to have a house and a facility to help them. We had a storefront facility for 1 month, free volunteers 2 days a week, and 100 glass jars. So what we came up with was, one of the volunteers was to, counsel the women. Another volunteer was to help them grow vegetables and, grapes and all to make jelly and canned vegetables in the jars that we get. And the other volunteer was to go out and solicit, either donations or funds from businesses and all. Anything that we got that could be sold, we could sell in the store, and any money we got could help with the expenses of getting more jars and all. One of the things we came up with that would show that if we was making progress was to get with the court systems, AA, and the DFACs, finding out how many cases or whatever was made against women that was been drinking, and also help referral women to us. And that was one of the things that we could do also, as far as finding out if we was making progress as far as our next steps, the prayer, check on logistics, and set up a board.
Okay. So those are your next steps. 2 seconds under 2 minutes, so good job. Good job. All right, last team, who's going?
Okay, our problem is homelessness, and the specific aspect of that is reintegration to society from institutionalization.
Okay.
That was a mouthful. So our resources are a shipping container, a celebrity for one day, and circus equipment. So we're starting off with a bang.
Wow.
So what we would like to do is take our lone shipping container and set it up as a CHU, which is a container housing unit. And that would be used to house someone coming out of prison or some sort of maybe a rehab home, and basically being sent back to society. And so our goal is to help them reintegrate to that and all that. So our celebrity is going to be our advertising and spokesperson. We will invite people to a benefit show in our circus tent with our volunteers putting on a circus performance and our celebrities speaking to raise awareness and to raise money to fund additional containers that we could, shipping containers that we could turn into container housing units, and also for supplies. We will contact local businesses that may have shipping containers that they would be willing to donate to make our CHU community larger. We will work with local businesses, local police, and network with homeless resources in the community. And we will continue as to raise more money. So we know that R&D will solve the problem because we're offering a first opportunity for a stable environment versus heading directly back onto the streets. And we, the evidence will be found in the reduction in the rate of recidivism. And so within 2 years of going through our program, 60% of our program participants would be able to obtain stable housing and employment. And we would be able to track this through the police department, employment agencies, and grants, and any of our grants that we've gotten to make sure that we are meeting the guidelines of receiving those grants. So that's how we would do that. We need to know more about federal and state guidelines and permitting, and our next steps are to form a task force and to develop a model and feasibility study.
Good job. And you guys had some interesting resources for sure. So I appreciate that. So here's the thing that I want to think about in terms of the process. How important were your resources in developing solutions? Pretty important, right? Whenever we create new ministries, some of you guys say no.
That was a big hum over there.
Whenever you guys create ministries, a lot of times we start with, okay, well, here's what we need. What would it look like if we started with the question, what do we have? Instead of going to what do we need, because a lot of times we're thinking dream stuff. We're not going to say we need circus equipment. We're going to say we need $10,000 and we need a professional facility and we need professional people to hire to come in and do these things. But what if we started out in a collaborative context and said, what do we have? What do we have at our disposal? And not just thinking about the money and the people and the experts and the facilities, but what if somebody said, well, you know, I have a collection of baseball cards. What can we do with a collection of baseball cards? You guys now are thinking 15 things you could do with a collection of baseball cards to accomplish your goal and to solve your problem. Whereas before, you'd be like, I can't do anything with a collection of baseball cards. But now all of a sudden you're like, hey, that might be really valuable. We could do something with that. So what would it look like if we change the question that we ask early on in our planning process? Okay? Here's what I want you guys to talk about just to wrap up this, and then I'm going to give you your next steps moving forward. What particular pieces of this process do you think would be useful in future problem-solving ministry planning sessions that you might be a part of, okay? Meaning, is it defining and refining the problem and narrowing in on the problem? Is it identifying resources? Is it thinking collaboratively within the community? What parts of this process do you think would be really, really meaningful for you to implement in your particular setting? Okay, so talk about that in your group, and I'm going to come around and collect. If you guys can put all those cards back together with paperclip, I'm going to come around and collect that.
Oh, yeah. We got some good calls compared to the circus. 100 glass jar.
I'm glad that you guys are really fortunate, right? Who chose these cards? Which ones do not contain circus equipment? Oh, somebody will take that.
All right, so now what are we doing? Well, I think. You did a good job recording. Thank you. Just gonna read what I wrote on there. I was thinking, like, well, and that would even have to be what happens. Like, yes. We have to make sure that but then after they do that, then we find what resources we have. Or not even to meet the needs, just like that was crazy. How we may not have the responsibility for like. So now we're talking. It might be the community. What is okay, so yeah.
Everybody will do it too. I met with my group or whatever. He's asking about the direction the church is.
All right, so if you guys will get your notebooks back out, we're gonna go over the last thing for today. All right? Turn to the page that says team assignment with your mutual ministry team. Team assignment with your mutual ministry team. It's in your handout that I gave you guys today. All right. While you guys are finding that, two announcements that I forgot to mention earlier that Jay reminded me of. First of all, are any of you guys coming to the chapel's Day Away to Pray this Wednesday? I know that those of you who are driving a long way cannot come, but I would love for you guys to come if you can. We're going to be in the greenhouse for those of you who are going to be able to make it. The greenhouse is our youth room, which is across the street behind the bank. So there's a Holloway's Bakery, there's a bank, it's right behind the bank. Okay, so it literally, as you go out this road, you're gonna kind of dead end into a bank right there across the street, and it's right behind the bank. Okay, so if you need further directions for that, get me at the end and I'll point it out to you. Okay, so we would love to have any of you guys who are able to do that come and join us. It's our rhythm at the chapel is that we gather together as a staff one day a month for learning and prayer and worship and fellowship and all of those things. So we're not putting on anything different than what we already normally do. We're just inviting you guys to come and start the new year with us and be a part of that. So if you can come, we would love to have you there. It'll be 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Lunch will be on your own, but we'll all eat together in the greenhouse. Everybody will go out and get their own meal and then bring it back because we just have a great time together. So I look forward to introducing some of you guys to my very dear friends. So I'd love for you guys to come to that. The other thing is Jay and I sent you guys a sign up for a marriage retreat. We would love for you guys to participate in that if you're able to. You have to sign up through the website. That's the only way to sign up and register. I can't register you because you've got to pay the fee through Epworth and do the building reservations and all that kind of stuff. So we've sent you guys the link. If you're interested in doing that, we would love to have you participate in that as well. So those two things. If you need more information about the prayer day away on Wednesday, just come grab me after the fact and then we'll talk about it. Okay, remember last time we got together, I said, hey, go ahead and set a meeting date with your mutual ministry team coming up, in mid-January, because you're going to have to set up a meeting to go over. Well, here's what you're going to do at that meeting. Okay, so hopefully you guys already scheduled that meeting and you're ready to go. So I've given you kind of an outline of what you'll be doing in that meeting. You will be leading that meeting, okay? So you'll be the one that's in charge of it. Now, here's the thing. It would be awesome if everybody on your mutual ministry team were able to come to that meeting. Is that realistic? No. So schedule the meeting. If you and one other person from your team can come, great, have the meeting. Don't postpone it waiting for everybody to be a part because schedules are crazy, okay? But just go ahead and have the meeting. Sometimes I think we wait until all the things are right before we move forward when we just need to move forward. So that's what we're going to do, okay? So you guys go ahead and schedule with as many of your team as possible, and here's what you're going to do. I'm just going to read it from the top. To learn more about how people change and grow, read the book, How People Grow, which you guys already have and you've been reading, okay? Then what you're going to do is talk about that book with your mutual ministry team. Here's the reason that I want you guys to meet with your team and talk about this book. Like you get really excited about the potential of doing something new with your membership system, or doing something new with your small group system, or doing a new approach to really aligning your discipleship opportunities. And then you go back and you're like, nobody else sees what I see anymore. All of a sudden, your vision has changed and people aren't seeing the same thing that you're seeing. This is going to give you the opportunity for you to share with them what you've been learning. And it's an assignment, so I gotta share. You know, it's not, hey, I think you need to know, but it's, hey, I'm supposed to share this with you. And all of a sudden, it puts that person in a less defensive posture. Because sometimes you can come in and you can get so excited and you say, hey, we're working together, you're on my team, I'm supposed to share with you things that I've been learning. Then all of a sudden, it's not, I'm about to change you because you don't see things the way I see it, but it's, hey, I want to share this with you, what I've been learning. Okay, so that's kind of the reason that we're getting together with these people. So the first thing you're going to do is set a meeting date and time. Send out an agenda in advance, letting people know what you're going to be doing, okay, so they know what to expect. You can say, item number 1, I'm going to share with you what I've been learning in this book. Item number 2, we're going to talk about discipleship and growth opportunities in our church. Item number 3, we're going to evaluate that. So send out an agenda ahead of time. Number 2, create a sign-in sheet for your meeting and have your MMT sign in as they arrive. Create a warm, welcoming environment that is comfortable and engaging. Have you guys noticed the room when you walk into one of our classes? When you walk in, things are ready, things are prepared, the coffee is on, the snacks are ready. No matter what you do, you need to see yourself as creating an environment. If you want to create an environment within this meeting where your ideas will be received and where people will think, oh, this person is prepared, they have thought about this stuff in advance, I'm willing to give them a listen because they've made coffee. That builds trust, okay? So you guys take the time to build trust. Think about your meeting room. Probably the chapel with the pews, that's not going to be the best meeting room for you, okay? You're going to want to sit in a place that seems comfortable, that seems like a living room kind of setting where we're all just standing around and we're all just talking, okay? Now, you may want to have chart paper or a whiteboard or a piece of poster board or something to write on. If you guys are going to come up with ideas and kind of debrief things, you might want to have that available. But you're not going to want it to be, I'm going to stand up here and present to you. You're going to want it to be, let's have a conversation together. Okay, so open with prayer. Share with your team key insights you have gained from the book. Hey, here's what I've been reading. This was an assigned reading for us, but let me tell you what I have learned from this book and how I think that really applies to our particular circumstance and situation. Number 2, complete the chart that follows. You guys will see that on the next page, okay? List all of the ministries you are currently engaged in that fall into a particular category, okay? Try to limit each ministry to just one area. Now, here's the reason that I'm saying just one area. A lot of times, women's ministry, okay? A lot of times, women's ministry will say, well, we do all of them. Well, if you do all of the things, then you're probably not doing any of them well and intentionally. So even if you do bits and pieces of all of these things, at the end of the day, what is your one purpose? What is your one reason? Why do you exist? For women's ministry, maybe it's nurture in faith, and that's the one reason that they exist. Then they need to focus on that instead of focusing on all the things and really not being able to be targeted on any one thing. So you're going to just list all of the things that they do. If you need to, bring your church calendar with you because that's what's on here. Your room reservation calendar, all the things that are happening in your church, all the things that you're doing in the community, you're going to list that in this chart under one of these areas. You could even replicate that chart on a big, huge piece of chart paper and you guys do it together, okay? Then you're going to talk about who do they reach? Who are we reaching with each of those particular ministries? A lot of times what you'll find is in this discussion, somebody is going to say, well, I think women's ministry is reaching young moms. And another one will be like, not really. It's reaching those who are retired. And then you're like, oh, well, what's the point? Who should we be reaching? Okay, so you might be able to get some clarity from that, okay? And then have each group agree on and assign an effectiveness score to each ministry. Here's the thing. You might find that there are varying opinions of how effective a ministry is. But by the time you've just said, hey, this is what it's designed to do, this is who it's designed to reach, you're using that as a scale or a gauge of effectiveness to determine if it's effective. So the ministry is designed to reach young moms who's only reaching retired people. The effectiveness score is not going to be very high because it's not doing what it was designed to do, which is not a negative thing. It's an opportunity for improvement. So now what do we need to do in order to make it reach that? However, if it is too controversial for you guys to talk about that and come to a consensus, have people write it on a slip of paper and just put an average score right there. You don't have to say, well, Jessica said it was a 1 and Edward said it was a 5 or whatever, you know. You don't have to do that. Just total it up and say, hey, here's the average effectiveness score. Diane?
Is this 2 supposed to be a 5?
Where?
To complete the chart of columns.
Oh, yes, it is. Thank you. No, I don't know that too. Yes. You count on word processing to do these things for you, and then it disappoints, right? And just right here where it says complete the chart that follows, that's supposed to be number 5. Yes,
So it says list all the ministries you are currently engaged in?
you as a church, because
in
you,
church. Okay.
yes, your ministry team, not you personally, you as a church. Yeah.
You as a church now, would that mean if they're helping another ministry somewhere through the church, like if a donation or?
So we would
So
say,
if we're at the church and we give $100 to help sponsor a child somewhere overseas.
I would say if you guys are giving a financial gift, I don't know, you could certainly extend it to that, but I would talk about the things that you are physically engaged in, yes. Now, you could have, so for us, we have a ministry that we support in Haiti that is overseas, but we have a team of people that runs the Second Story Good Shop. Well, we would evaluate the effectiveness of the ministries that we do, Second Story Good Shop. Who is it reaching? It's reaching the congregation and connecting them to Haiti. How effective are we in doing that? Well, that's how so yeah, not just who all do we give money to, which that's a whole other thing that we need to evaluate, but that's another topic. Yeah.
So
Evan?
what if some of our members are not from our church? Do we still have them focus on our
Perfect question. So here's the thing. Evan asked, what if some of the members of our team are not from our church? That is the best case scenario. Because if all of you guys are internally focused, it's really hard to see things from a new perspective. You can, Evan, in this conversation, ask the people who are outside of your church, hey, be listening for when you hear things that are not clear or are contradicting each other. Because a lot of times we will say 2 different things at the same time and not see a problem with it and think it's okay. Because we don't even hear ourselves. But somebody who is not a part of your local context will be like, wait, hold on. If you give them permission to ask those questions, because that's where we really figure out, oh my gosh, we're competing against ourselves and we're not honed in and aligned in the same direction. So that's great.
Okay, but then we're still focusing on the church that we are in.
Yes, the church that you are in, allowing those people to speak into that in an objective way will be beautiful. Okay? Then you're going to discuss as a team, where are we strong? Where are we weak? What ministries are being ineffective? What types of ministries are over or underrepresented? Okay? Now, here's the thing. You might only have 5 ministries to talk about. That might take you 5 minutes. All right? If it does, then move on to the next thing. If this first part takes you 2 hours and everybody's done, don't keep going. Just stop the meeting, okay? So many times we get so married to our agenda and our objectives that we keep going when we just should have let it stop, right? So if you can go on to the next part and you guys have the bandwidth to talk about it, then you can talk about membership using these questions. If you guys are done and finished and exhausted after the first part, that's okay. The whole point of this exercise is to be a facilitator to help you guys have and start these conversations in your own ministry setting, okay? It's not to check it off the list and get it done. That's not the point of this. If it's just check it off the list and get it done, you guys are not going to get anything out of this, and that's going to be a waste, okay? I want to help facilitate those conversations around tough topics for you guys so you can make me out to be the bad guy. You don't have to be the bad guy. You have to say, well, Ann told me I had to do this thing, so thank you guys for being here. That's fine. I'll be the bad guy, okay? Then you can say, hey, thank you guys for helping me complete this assignment. But here's the thing. If you guys go into it just let me check it off the list, you're going to miss out on the opportunity to really facilitate a discussion around something that a lot of times people don't want to engage in. So let this be a springboard to some alignment and to some clarity and to beginning the conversation. And here's the thing, if you guys don't get to the membership discussion, maybe you could meet again at another time that you're not even required to meet. How about that? Like you could have another meeting all about membership and then continue the meeting and the conversation at another time to do before the next time. Our next meeting is the 12th, 19th.
That's 2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks, yes.
And we gotta do this all within 2 weeks.
Which is why I told you a month ago to go ahead and schedule your meeting. That's why I told you guys. So you gotta do this. You gotta do this in 2 weeks because you've already scheduled your meeting. I know you guys did it. Yes. What's that?
Discussion should be number 6.
Yes. Yeah. You're gonna do all of that. Yes. All right. Any questions?
I'm hoping that this thing enlightens maybe people that we need to start doing something.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. This is an opportunity.
Instead of giving Sunday morning.
Yeah. This is an opportunity for you.
Opportunity.
Do you want these?
So many. Yes. Any question you need me to answer now, Jenna?
I'm good.
All right. All right. Anything else? Okay. Let's pray and dismiss, and then, as always, if you guys can clean up with me. Here, I just have to brag on you guys for just a moment. So we have a new guy that is coming in to be our facilities manager. Okay. And I heard Eric, our facilities guy, talking to him, and he's like, well, what about this Saturday group? Do I need to go in and, clean up after them? And Eric's like, oh my gosh, no. They take such good care of the facility. It's always right when people come in on Sunday morning. I'm like, that's it. That's my team. So you guys just make me look good, and I just really appreciate that. So you guys are awesome taking care of our facilities. Okay, let's see. Who wants to pray us out? Gary will pray us out.
Father, we are so thankful, Lord, for how you impart this knowledge and give us wisdom, Lord, through your word. We're so thankful that we have the opportunity to gather as brothers and sisters in Christ and to study how we would go about in furtherance of glorifying your name. This is all about you and what you're going to accomplish through us. So we're just so thankful that we get to be used like this. So we just want to say thank you, Lord, and we ask for continued diligence, Lord, as we complete this program, and that we would go out and the people that come into our congregations are built up, they're encouraged, and they draw near to you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I am so hurt.
Yes.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I'm sorry. I'm ready to start my own.